if you read any sacred text and it says that you are created in the image of God and in the likeness of God, it means God is what color? Black. And anytime anybody gives you a God who doesn't look like you give him that God back. You say, you know what? Yeah, your God looks okay, but just take him. Because at the dawn of time, there were no other people on earth but us. None. And you know, the most interesting story is that story unfolded around this river that passes through your district. The Nile. That is where humanity began. To the extent that UNESCO, United Nations Educational Scientific Committee Organization, in volume 2, chapter 1, it says, as a result of the work of Professor Like and other subsequent work, it leads us to conclude that more than 150,000 years ago, beings morphologically identical with the man of today were living in the area of the Great Lakes, at the foothills of the mountains of the moon, at the source of the Nile, in the land of the gods, and nowhere else. UNESCO, nowhere else. Humanity went through 5 stages. The first stages are known as Australopithecine, black. Where were they living? Where you are living. How old? How long ago? 5.5 million years ago. Who was living in Europe at that time? No one. Who was living in Asia at that time? No one. Who was living in America North? None. America South? None. Bismarck Archipelago? No one. Australia? Tonga? None. Haiti? Fiji? Samoa? Who was living there? No one. Humanity was only here. 3.5 million years ago, Homo habilis.
Hey, what's up, good people? I hope you're doing fine wherever you are today. This is a presenter, Jintok Stories. And there's something interesting that I found online, and I think it's important if we try to share with each other. Now, I don't want to say much, but I would like to highlight something. We have a whitewashed religion, and especially we Africans, we have always been presented with this, and it's so fascinating and it's so refreshing to see one of African professors. I'm talking about Dr. Nkuba. Dr. Nkuba is a professor, I think, from Uganda. He has done a lot of critiques about religion. He is a professor, he is taught, and he's a good teacher from what I can see, because all along while I was watching the video, it was just all about fun. I was feeling like it was so refreshing to hear how he describes the whitewashed religion that we Africans were presented with. And there are a couple of things that I took away from that, right? And the fact that white people, or the white religion, or the missionaries who came with this white religion, they decided to paint us black people as bad people, while white people as good people. There's this perfection illusion that they gave to black people. And so you realize that this seed is always growing in Africans, and explains why when white people come to African countries, black people could even worship them, right? Because they take them as people who are so much superior. This is because of the whitewashing that was done unto Africans. And so it is so refreshing to see these African professors come out and talk about this, come out and teach people about this. I would just like to give a short, for those who don't know the professor, I would like to, say 1, 2, 3 things about him that I feel it's important. Now, Dr. Nkuba is a Ugandan writer, historian, media personality, and a public intellectual known for his extensive work on Africa, history, culture, and politics. His work often focuses on decolonization, Pan-Africanism, and the critique of Western influence on African society. Just the way I've introduced him, because he is a Pan-African, and we as African, we are living in a whitewashed society in as much as it is in Africa, right? Our freedom is still not ours. So having these kind of people professors, it's important because it teaches us to understand our own power, our own influence. So I want to let this video play. I don't want to say much. If you're watching this video for the first time, I'll most definitely ask you to subscribe to the channel, join the membership, and really get to see what we can offer you. Until then, let's dive right and watch the video. I'll be back.
But I know you have not heard about this information. Why? Because when white people colonize the world, they also colonize the information about the world. So white people hid the information about yourself. They didn't want to tell you you are a great person. Let me give you examples of something that you know. You've all read about the Bible, haven't you? Yeah? Now, who wrote the first 5 books of the Bible? Who can tell me? Who wrote the first 5 books of the Bible? Moses wrote the first 5 books of the Bible. We don't know his second name. You know, he had only one name. Unlike you, who have 2 English names and 1 Langi name. What is your name? John James Okecho. Where did you get John from? My parents. Were your parents English? No. Were they Scottish? No. What about your grandmother? No. And your grandfather? No. So where did you get John from? I don't know. Do you have a grandfather? Yes. Did he have a long name? Yes. Why are you not named after his name? I don't know. What does the word John mean? I don't know. Maybe it means a saint somewhere. But for a start, I want to excite you in this word called melanin. Melanin. Who knows this word? Who of you knows melanin? You haven't started learning, particularly if you're a black person, unless you know what melanin is. Melanin is a carbon that does not deteriorate over time. Melanin is your black skin pigmentation. Or in plants, it is equivalent to chlorophyll. But it is the most powerful thing that you can have. In terms of people, we gauge your importance on the amount of melanin you have. So we say the darker the better. The darker the better. Now, this melanin is responsible for a lot of things, and I want you to write them down. I hope you have where to write, students. Huh? Number 1, it protects you against the ultraviolet rays of the sun and the energy from the earth. So, when the sun hits your body, certain rays are allowed in, certain rays are filtered out. It stops you getting skin cancer. Then it protects you against the energy from the earth, which means if you are standing, it anchors you. Like in electricity, you have earthing. Yeah? When something is earthed, it's not hit by lightning. You know that. So, if you are standing here with a white person and lightning struck, it would pick a white person, throw him there, you would remain standing tall, blessed of the sun, because of your melanin. So, number 1, protects you against the ultraviolet rays of the sun. Number 2, protects you against the energy from the earth. It anchors you. Number 3, melanin is responsible for healing. When you cut yourself, if you cut yourself, you see blood, you see something red, they may be white. And when it starts healing, a dark skin comes and covers it, or a dark patch comes and covers it. That dark patch is melanin. Melanin sends reinforcement around the area that is affected and brings about healing. So melanin is also responsible for healing. Melanin is responsible for a sleeping cycle, how you sleep. If you don't have melanin, you don't sleep properly. You have what they call insomnia. Melanin controls fatigue. So you are not tired most of the time. So other people who don't have melanin, they have fatigue. If they travel in a plane, they get what they call jet lag. Then melanin is also responsible for something else, what we call a corresponding cosmic connection. It links you to the universe. You begin feeling something. You feel energy pulses. You know, there is a lot of energy that is here that you don't see. Energy you don't see, but you can harness it. For example, if somebody calls you on phone, you don't see the sound traveling in the air. But it comes to your phone. So there is a ultraviolet, ultra high frequency signal that comes to your telephone. Are you with me? So, for example, one way you can test a corresponding cosmic connection is when a black person hears a music pulse, a sound pulse, an energy sound. So if I say na 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 na, oh Africa, Africa, na 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 na, oh Africa, straight away you feel the rhythm. Even before you hear it pulsate through your veins. If it was a white person, they wouldn't feel the rhythm. And if they started dancing, they would be jumping up like this, and then they would do this, and they would not move in tandem with the rhythm because they don't have melanin. They do not have that corresponding cosmic connection. The corresponding cosmic connection also means that you could be seated here, and something happens to you, and your mother at home will see a leaf fall from a tree, and you'll say, there's something wrong with my son. Or you could be going somewhere and you see a rat cross the road. You say, this is not a good thing. So that nature works with you, not against you, to warn you, you are at harmony with nature. So that's another thing that melanin does. Protects you against the ultraviolet rays of the sun, the energy from the earth. Melanin controls hearing. Melanin controls fatigue. Melanin gives you a corresponding cosmic connection. But melanin also does something else. Melanin gives you dominant genes. Dominant genes. Now, you know the science of genetics. Yeah? You know genetics, genes. That science started around 1822 with a gentleman called Gregor Mendel. Gregor Mendel was an Austrian from Austria, and he was a Catholic priest from the Augustine monks. He was an Augustine monk. Augustine lived around the 2nd, 3rd, 4th century AD, and he was the black person who lived in North Africa in a place called Hippo Regius, who wrote the laws of the Catholic Church. Because most of you think that, white people brought religion and they taught you how to read and write. That's all not true. That's what we call his story, the white man's side of the story. It's not our story. It's not true. So I am just telling you that Augustine of Hippo was this bishop who wrote the laws of the Catholic Church. Now, the followers of Augustine are called Augustinian monks. And one of the Augustinian monks was Gregory Mendel, who lived in Austria around 1822. And in Austria, he was looking at genes, because at that time, white people were wondering where humanity started. Who were the first people to populate the world? And they thought that white people were the first people to populate the world. And at the time, Christianity was very heavy in Europe. It's not the same now. If you go in a church in England, you will probably find about 2 or 3 people, the priest and his assistant and maybe one other person, unless it's Christmas. So they were first looking in Europe. Then they couldn't find, the oldest they could go was 40,000 years. Then they went to Asia, the oldest they could go was 900,000 years. And then they came to Africa. And the oldest they could go in Africa was about 1.5 million years. So Mendel wanted to find out, using genes, inherited characteristics. Because when a man meets a woman, in Africa we say you have a spiritual congress. European people say you have sex. In Africa we don't have sex. We don't even have a word for it. We call it a spiritual congress. But when a man meets a woman, they exchange first genes. And the first genes they exchange is called nuclear DNA. And you share, almost equal sequence that sit on your chromosome. So you have a certain equal percentage from the male and the female. But there is a certain gene that the mother passes on to the child without going through the filtration process. That is called mitochondria DNA. Mitochondria DNA. Sometimes it's written like this. Mitochondria DNA. That one the mother passes to the child without going through filtration process. The father doesn't contribute to that DNA. So if we want to find out who is your father, we will just look at your mitochondria DNA. But the inherited characteristics pass through from the nuclear DNA. So Mendel was looking at these characteristics, and he was looking at plants to see what does a father plant give to a child plant? What does a mother plant give to a child plant? And then he went to animals. And Mendel concluded that if you began with white people, you would you'd never have got black people. Because white people have what they call recessive genes. Do you study that? You study recessive genes? You also study dominant genes. You study that? Now, if you study recessive genes and dominant genes, you know that a recessive can never produce a what? A recessive can never produce a dominant. But a dominant can do what? Very good, very good. Some of your fees, went for a good cause. Huh? If you know recessive genes, you can never stay away from that. Recessive genes. No two white cats can produce a black cat. No two white goats can produce a black goat. No two white cows can produce a black cow. No two white chickens can produce a white chicken. And no two albinos, no two white people can produce a black person. Why? Because black is dominant and white is recessive. Which means what? It means you produced white people. If you had begun with white people, if Adam and Eve had been a white person, you would not be here. It means that you, who has melanin is the most incredible, most powerful thing that you can have. You have no idea what melanin is, what being black means, what having black skin is. White people today, that's why I said go and look for this, melatonin. You will find thousands and thousands of products made out of melatonin. White people inject their lips to have fresh lips, like a black woman's or a black man's. Because white people have no lips. Their lips are almost like this. You know that. Those of you have seen white people. They are cut short. There wasn't enough material. But for you, being the first person, you utilize all the material to make yourself into a full person. Yeah? White people are injecting their breasts to have full breasts like a black woman. Because most of white people don't have. They have like flat chest. You sometimes see, is it a man? And now they wear trousers. Say, hey, a man or woman? And because of plastic, they also have beards. So you don't know whether you're really dealing with a man. But quite significantly, white women are injecting their behind with melatonin so that they can have what they call steatopedia, the unusual accumulation of fat on the black woman's behind. Whereas white women have what we call ironing board backside, completely flat. There is nothing there. Yeah? So there is nothing more beautiful than being a black person. Nothing more powerful than being a black person. There is nothing more beautiful. Listen to me. White people, most of the time, as black people, we hate ourselves. And unless we deal with that hatred among us black people, we cannot achieve anything. You can't become a scientist, you can't become a historian, you can't become successful, you can become only successful to a limit where everybody is trying to put you down. But why do we hate ourselves? Because we were told in the Bible that we were cursed. Haven't you heard that? The curse of Ham? That we were cursed as the sons of Ham. And yet, cursed in the Bible, Noah, who was a drunkard, cursed Canaan. He didn't curse, he cursed one son of black people, but not all. Because Noah was also a black person. according to the Bible. And, hopefully we'll come, and cover this. So, we hate ourselves. And even in everyday language, if I want to cheat you, I blackmail you. If I want to put you on a bad list, I'll blacklist you in a what book? In a black book. Haven't you heard that? That will put you in a black book. Teachers used to have black books. Do they still have them? Yeah? Change their name. Call them white books or, danger books. Now, if it is a bad spot on the road, it is called a what spot on the road? A black spot. If it is a bad trading day, it is called a black day. If it is in a legal market, it is called a what market? A black market. Which means if there are black people in the market, then the market is illegal. You are not supposed to trade. Yeah? As long as you see black people, it's illegal. So we wear black for funerals. And when we wear mosquito nets for weddings, what color are they? Hey, you have not seen the wedding dresses. What do you think they make them out of? Mosquito net, except there are many of them piled together. So stay away from them when you get married. Huh? Don't go and get a mosquito net and then they have a long one so that when it's walking, it keeps cleaning the street. Yeah? I don't know why they do such a thing. So, when you wear white for weddings and you wear what color for funerals? Black. Now, in your homes, the pictures of God that you have is what color? Be honest. Tell the truth and shame the white man. What color are the pictures on the wall in your homes? White. And what color then is the devil? So if I kill all of you, I have fought the devil, won't I? Is that not, doesn't it make sense? If I am a Christian, and they say onward Christian soldiers, if I am a soldier of Christ, my job is to fight the devil. What does the devil look like? Isn't it black? When you go in a military college, the sabao, when you are learning how to shoot, the target practice is what kind of head? It's a black head. So it is no wonder that black people hate themselves. Because every time you see God, you are not thinking of your sister or your mother or your uncle. You are not thinking of Nkuba as looking like God. No. You are thinking that somebody else, not you, looks like God and you look like the devil. And most of the time, if I look like the devil, I am told I'm a devil, then I act like a devil. I don't want to disappoint people. People thinking that, I'm a wonderful person. Let me try to live up to the part. That's what psychology says. But I'm here to tell you today, number one, that when God created the world, there were no white people at all. There were no Chinese. There were no Indians. There were no Italians, no Romans, no Germans, no Poles, no Finns, no Swedes, no Goths, no Vandals, no Visigoths, no Vikings. There were only black people. Only black people. They were probably at the time darker than you. So, if you read in a sacred text and it says that you are created in the image of God and in the likeness of God, it means God is what color? Black. And anytime anybody gives you a God who doesn't look like you, you give him that God back. You say, you know what? Yeah, your God looks okay, but just take him. Because at the dawn of time, there were no other people on earth but us. None. And the most interesting story is that story unfolded around this river that passes through your district. The Nile. That is where humanity began. To the extent that UNESCO, United Nations Educational Scientific Committee Organization, in volume 2, chapter 1, it says as a result of the work of Professor Like and other subsequent work, it leads us to conclude that more than 150,000 years ago, beings morphologically identical with the man of today were living in the area of the Great Lakes, at the foothills of the mountains of the moon, at the source of the Nile, in the land of the gods, and nowhere else. UNESCO, nowhere else. Humanity went through 5 stages. The first stages are known as Australopithecine, black. Where were they living? Where you are living. How old? How long ago? 5.5 million years ago. Who was living in Europe at that time? No one. Who was living in Asia at that time? No one. Who was living in America North? None. America South? None. Bismarck Archipelago? No one. Australia? Tonga? None. Haiti? Fiji? Samoa? Who was living there? No one. Humanity was only here. 3.5 million years ago, Homo habilis. Where was he living? Here. Was he living elsewhere? No. 1.5 million years. Humanity at the stage of Homo erectus, the African that walks upright. Where is he living? Here. He lives here to populate the world. He passes through the Gulf of Eden, avoids Saudi Arabia, crosses into India. And then he goes through Kenya, Mijikenda, Tayar in Australia, and populates all the islands in between. Avoids Israel, avoids Jordan, avoids Syria. He also discovers fire. Then 150,000 years, modern man, known as Homo sapien. Homo sapien. The oldest Homo sapien, the bones discovered in Omo Valley in Ethiopia and Kenya. He started where? Here. Then he moves with his feet and his cows, mobile food, and his language, articulated symbolic language, and his brain, a bigger cranium, and he populates Europe. He is the first person to populate Europe about 40,000 years ago, known as Gromordi. The first people to populate Europe were black people. They were known as Gromordi. First people to populate England were black people. They were known as Bika. First people to populate India were black people. They were known as Dravidians. First people to populate Japan, black people. They were known as Masaba Negroes. Mulembe, Kamaku, Wagasile, they came from here. They populated Japan. That's why Japanese names are like Ugandan names. Takahara, Nakamura, Kato, Toyota, all those, because the first Japanese were black people. In ancient time, the whole world belonged to the black man, the black woman. You are the people that populated the world. You are the people that gave birth to everybody else. And quite significantly, and I am telling you this as a scholar, I have a library of 32,000 books. I have read each one of them, not only read them, but remember them. I have traveled in almost every corner of the world, lectured at the most prestigious universities. I am telling you that in ancient time, the only people who are on earth were you and your ancestors. You. And you are also the people of the scriptures. All scripture, be it the Rigvit Veda, the Namapali, the Peremperu, the Papyrus of Ani, the Papyrus of Hunefa, the Quran, the Bible, the Book of Zoroaster, the Epic of Gilgamesh, is all about black people. Black people.
Hey, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. I just hope that you're fine. Now, both you and I will agree that the talks that Dr. Nkuba was trying to share with us was so fascinating, was so eye-opening, was so refreshing, right? Because I believe it's important for us to, always talk about these subjects, talk about these topics, because it teaches us to value ourselves as black people. Because for the longest time, we have been at the periphery, at the expense of these people. And man, it is so refreshing because we Africans, we are the ones who have paid these, right? Because we don't know the value of just having the melanin, just like the professor was trying to explain. the importance of just owning and having the melanin. This is one of the most important things that we can have when we start talking about genetics, right? So I believe that Dr. Nkuba has played a vast role, has played a pragmatic role in ensuring that we black people, we are well endowed with knowing this. Because look, initially, when African schools were being set up, the books that Africans were given, they were a white man's book. And it didn't talk about African spirituality. It didn't even touched about African folklores. It didn't even touch about African type of lifestyle, generally the African spirituality. These works didn't talk about that. It talked about the European history, which has nothing to do with Africans. Now, as an allegory or as in something like an allusion, right? I want to give you an allusion from this movie called Sarafina. If you've watched Sarafina, you'll definitely know. At times when the South Africans were going through the apartheid regime, right? These white folks, they brought their syllabus into African schools. And this is a perfect example because people want to know the history of Africans and black people who look like you and I. But all these people are trying to push, all these people are trying to do, they were always trying to give the history of a white man, the history of Benito Mussolini. They were trying to give the history of these white people. Well, it doesn't have any significance to an African who want to understand who they are, where they come from, their culture, their people, right? And so we were living in a whitewashed society. And people like Professor Dr. Nkuba, they said, no, enough is enough, right? Because remember, and Uganda is good with this because Uganda is one of the African countries who came with Pan-Africanist universities, like Makerere University, right? So we having these African leaders, African professors who saw to it that, enough is enough. And now we need to teach our curriculum, teach our people African spirituality, understand the essence, understand the value of having just a black skin, understanding the value of owning melanin. And black folks in the United States know this. Black folks in the United States know that if you have a melanin, it is more worth than gold. It is more worth than any precious metal today. Because trust me, people could kill just to have your melanin. And some of us are taking it for granted, of course, because it is there, right? That's why they are definitely taking it for granted, because they know that it is there in the proximity. Now, when something it is in your proximity, we tend to misuse it. We tend not to see its value. And that's why this keeps on happening. This explains why also we are having self-hate amongst Africans. And people who are light skin are being valued so much as people who are black skin. People without even knowing that you just being black itself is enough. And hey, get this. I'm not saying that people who are light skin doesn't have melanin, but what I'm trying to say is that the melanin concentration in people who are black is so high and resistant to UV rays that might cause diseases like skin disease, cancer, talk about them. And that explains why if you see black people getting out on the sand, you'll never see them wearing sunburns. But for white folks, they'll have to do that because this is something that they are lacking. They lack melanin. And even Africans who are so much light skinned, they have a lot of melanin concentration as compared to white people. So there's something about genetics, about black genetics, which is the black genetics that needs to be taught in schools so that we as Africans, we stop hating ourselves. We start to see value in our own skin. We start to see value in our presence, because the professor said, and this is the truth, God created man in his own image and likeness. So when I see you as an African, I see a God, because life began in Africa. Everybody came from Africa. All along, we are seeing white folks. What happened is mutation. Mutation happened and changed everything and changed how we perceived ourselves. And this is not hate to white people, but what I'm trying to say, I'm trying to educate my people who are black folks, right? And even some white people know this. People who have invested in science. And it was so sad when these people put science into racism and they started interbreeding white people and they segregated black people, right? To make black genes or to make black genes not to prosper. And the black gene is so strong. In as much as they try to castrate black men, and as much as they try to put away black men from black women, the black population still improved. And this also explains why populations in different countries like China, Japan, the United States, people don't want to have birth. But in Africa, in as much as people are saying it is a third world continent, of which it is not, but people are saying it is a third world continent, the population keeps on increasing. In as much as people are talking about the diseases that are here in Africa, which I'm not saying, which is way much more less and healthier, right? Because all those countries that we are talking about, they are toxic countries. And when we talk about Africa, we're talking about something authentic. When I see my brother, I see a God, because Africa is the home of all mankind. Then some of you call it Al-Kibulan, right? So this is the place where everything started. And you as African, and you as African descendant, and you as a black American, you as an African American, and you as foundationally black American, a person who identifies with Africa or black people or originally people who came from Africa, right? You need to know this, because this is a masterpiece. This is an important information that I feel like everyone needs to put on their catalog while trying to understand the importance of just owning or having the melanin that you have. Most of us take it for granted until the time you bleach your skin, because that's what the society wants you to do. The society has made your mind think that having a light skin is more attractive than having a black skin. God himself appreciates different shades of skin, different shades of skin color. But when it comes to a point when you feel like you're less of a human, or you feel like you're less attractive because you're a black person, this gives you, and this should make you understand the essence of just having a black skin, right? There's so much advantage apart from beauty, like the black authentic beauty. I've seen black women, they're so much beautiful. And even when they move to places like Canada, US, when they're walking on the street, white people couldn't stop staring at them because of the beauty, because of the magnificent beauty that they are having. So it is time for you as a black person to sit down and appreciate who you are, to appreciate what you're made of, because it is important for you to know and understand where you come from. You come from Al-Kibulan, and this is the place where humanity started. This is the place where your blessings, this is a place where you are supposed to be. These are presented unique stories, and if you're watching this video for the first time, I'll most definitely ask you to subscribe to the channel, join our membership, and really get to what I can offer you. And thank you guys. Tell me what you think about this in the comment section. I'll definitely love to know what you feel about this professor. He's from Uganda, and you can look him up. He's called Dr. Professor Nkuba Kihara. So I'm hoping to see you in my next video. But until then, peace, love, and harmony. Salute.